No one.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Gators Online Show. I am Keith Niebuhr. As always, I'm joined by Zach Albaverdi. We cover the Florida Gators for Gators Online, part of the On3 network. And, you know, Zach, the Florida Gators are only 1-3, but it is never dull in Gainesville. You've got number 9 Texas coming to town this weekend. You've got a lot of chatter about just how hot the seat is for Florida Gators coach Billy Napier. People also want to know, are we going to see the DJ Lagway at quarterback that we thought we would see in 2025? So obviously we have a lot to discuss this show. We're going to bring in Joe Cook of Inside Texas a little bit later to help us break down Saturday's Florida-Texas game. But before we get rolling, as always, we got to pay some bills, and this is a big one. Zachary, take it over.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's get this up here for you guys. As we kick off the show each and every time with a shout out to Game Time. College football season is in full swing, and you know that the stadiums are packed for games like this one on Saturday. Florida versus Texas. This is one that Gator fans have been waiting on and had circled on their calendar. There's a lot of other big-time matchups coming up as well. If you want to get in the stands and be there for the action, the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fan. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means that you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. There's no surprise fees at checkout, and you can get college football tickets for as low as $25. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code ON3. That's ON and the number 3 for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download the Game Time app today.
Zach, when I was a little kid, I used to go to the Gator games with my dad, and I didn't understand the whole ticket scalping thing. And you would show up at the stadium, and you'd see a guy with a sign that would say "need tickets," and I'd be like, "Yeah, that's cool. That everybody knows that guy now needs tickets." Not realizing that was the guy that once you walked up to, pulled out 50 tickets from his, from his pockets, and you weren't getting these $20 Game Time discounts.
No, you were not. No, you were not.
All right,
I remember that. That was back in the day.
Back in the day, we used to park at J.J. Finley, the elementary school, right behind University Avenue. All right, Zach, number 9, Texas. They're 3-1. They did not look great in week 1 at Ohio State, but it was at Ohio State. Ohio State's now number 1 in the country. Ohio State has the number 8 defense in the country. Ohio State just flattened Washington on the road. They look like a legit contender.
Yeah.
And since then, Texas, again, they didn't look good, but they were only down 7, had a chance to take it overtime late. So they were in the game. They were never not out of the game. Since then, they've played San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston State, and they've gotten their confidence back. Funny how that works. But they're 3-1. They come to the Swamp facing a 1-3 Florida team that has now lost consecutive games to USF at home, 18-16. LSU, top 5 team on the road, 20-10. Miami, top 5 team on the road, 26-7. And Florida's reeling a little bit. But they had an open week, just like Texas. And they're saying all the right things, Zach, but they always say all the right things. But You've been there in interviews all week. Any takeaways from the interviews? Anything that makes you think, okay, maybe Florida can get this offensive thing going? Because obviously, as you pointed out many times, defense has done its job.
I mean, the one thing that if you're holding on to hope as a Florida fan to try to see DJ Lagway be the guy that everybody expected going into 2025, the bye week came at a good time. Not only for him to rest up a little bit more because he was banged up in that Miami game, but just to get 11-on-11 work in practice. And I know a lot of people saw his quote that he said on Monday and were like, what does that mean? And he said that the bye was his first real week of getting good reps for a whole practice. And, some fans saw that and said, well, why hadn't he been doing that the whole time? Well, and I asked Napier about it, and he said during a game week, you don't have 11-on-11 the entire practice. So you're doing a lot of things to prepare for an opponent, and you might only have 16 to 18 scripted plays in 11 on 11 when you're preparing each practice for an opponent. So during the bye week, they cut it loose. They don't do as many individual drills, and basically, as in something that they started last year, they scrimmage. They split up the roster into two teams, and they go at it for 2 days in a row. And for DJ to get that much basically 11 on 11 work back-to-back days, it was good for him. It was good for the offense, as we heard from Jake Slaughter as well. He felt like all of them needed that because that was time, obviously, that they missed in the offseason. DJ did not scrimmage once, not in the spring, not in the fall. So with that, he also, according to his coach and his teammates, played better, got some confidence back. Is at least at the podium. We can only judge him off of what we've seen at the podium because we don't see practice. He's already talking more confidently than he has at any point this year. I mean, he's been down in these press conferences, understandably so. We also have only been talking to him after losses, but he made that guarantee after the Miami game that everybody heard, I think, by now. But Monday was the most upbeat and confident, and that he's shown, and kind of had a little bit of swagger to him. So the players have said that he's portrayed that and displayed that on the field, that he's got more confidence out there. But again, you need to get real confidence from game day. So this is a big matchup for him. And Texas's defense is gonna be no joke. But like you said, Keith, all the things that you would want to hear from the press conference setting and the comments that are coming from inside the program, they're saying the right things. And it seems like DJ has made at least some of the strides that he certainly needed to during the off week.
Well, you look at the offensive numbers, and I'm trying to look some of that up as we go along here. Well, they're not pretty, Zach. I mean, 328 yards a game. Obviously, who you play matters, right? Excuse me, but 328 yards a game, that's only 113th nationally. That's it. 22 points a game. That's 98th nationally. On third down conversion, Florida is among the worst in the country, around 30%. That's all third downs. Then if you get Florida into a third and long situation, like 3rd and 9 or more, they're only 1 of 19. 1 of 19. And as our buddy Josh Pate said in his show this week, you think you could get lucky and accidentally get one. I mean, just by a guy falling down or something like that. Nope. And I went back, Zach, and broke down every one of those 3rd and longs. You're obviously trying to avoid 3rd and 9, let's be honest. But they've been in a lot of them. Against LSU, they were 1 of 8. But to have 8 plays of 3rd and 9 or longer, that in itself is the problem. As Billy Napier said this week, they're trying to stay out of those 3rd and long situations. But on those 1 of 19 on 3rd and 9, Zach, I watched the video of every single play with great breakdowns from Sean Kelly and Shane Matthews from the Gator broadcast matched with the video. They didn't even really come that close on a lot of them, on most of them.
Yeah.
So they're a struggling offense. The blocking grades against Miami were putrid, if we're going to be honest. The offensive line hasn't lived up to the hype. You talk to Jake Slaughter. I mean, look, DJ Lagway's getting a lot of the blame. He hadn't played well. We know that. The play calling's getting a lot of the criticism. We know that. And, I'm not a coach, Zach. I don't claim to know. I just look at the numbers, and the numbers aren't good. But the offensive line, that was supposed to be this elite group. You had 4 starters back. You had a returning All-America center, Jake Slaughter, back, a very good player in Austin Barber at left tackle back, 2 other serviceable starters in Damian George and Najee Harris. So then right tackle, you thought you had something in Bryce Lovett, who would have been a guy coming off an all-SEC freshman season. But the line hasn't lived up to its billing yet. Do we know what the issues have been? And, are they correctable? What do you think?
I mean, according to Jake Slaughter, it's been communication and it's been execution. And, I think some people hear his comment and be like, well, what the hell? Like, how could you guys have communication issues when you've been playing together for multiple years? And I personally, and I don't think Jake is going to say this publicly, I don't necessarily believe that the communication issues are amongst the offensive linemen. I think that the communication issues are with them as a group and their quarterback. I think that that's where things have been off. And the time that DJ missed in the offseason has hurt not only him, but it's hurt his offensive line. It's hurt his center. I'd be curious to know the false starts that Jake has had. How much of those were on him? How much of those were on DJ? How much of those were on the fact that they haven't had the reps that they needed, the 11 on 11 work that they needed and worked so hardly on in the bye week? So I think that Jake said, hey, man, it doesn't matter if you've been playing with a guy for 3 years or 3 games. Like, you need to go out there and practice and go through a game plan and be able to execute things as an offense, as a quarterback, as an O-line unit. So that, like you said, is there still the potential for this thing to come together? I think it starts with DJ. And I think that if he can settle in and start to play the way that he did last year, that's going to rub off on not just the team, but in the offense. But I think more than anything, it's going to rub off on the offensive line. And it's going to help them play better. So you can't attribute all of it to that, though, because I will say that I feel like in run blocking, they haven't also done a great job either. Florida's had success when they tried to run the ball, but they've also had times where they've just been getting stuffed in the run game. But the worst thing has been the pass protection, Keith. I mean, those PFF grades, they're old now, so I don't mind putting them out. But for anyone that didn't see it, like Jake Slaughter graded out fine. For those that aren't familiar with the PFF grades, like if you're grading out if you're grading out in an 80, that's like very, very, very good. Like it's hard to get that. You rarely see a guy grade out in a 90 in any category. That means like he had like a damn near perfect performance. So 80 is like really, really good. 70 is not average. 70 is like above average. So Jake was in the 70s, but man, the rest of their pass protection grades against Miami, according to PFF, were 34, 17, 11.2, and 7.8. And then two backup players, earned 0.0 grades in pass protection against Miami.
Wow.
0.0. Two guys got that.
Yeah.
So that's, so you can't put it all on DJ.
Yeah. Zach, that Miami, I don't want to rehash too much of it, but you got me thinking about that again. 141 total yards of offense for Florida in that
I've
game.
never seen a Florida offense have less than 100 yards passing and rushing. I don't know the last time I saw that.
I mean, look, it was horrible. And it looked like a couple of things I want to say. It looked like Miami, again, people are going to say, okay, there's the play calling. That's not what I'm saying. I'm only saying it felt like Miami knew every play. Maybe they were incredibly well prepared. Maybe Florida wasn't. I don't know that. Maybe they just were better that day. But it looked like, they were from that very first drive, 3 plays and out like it was nothing. And Florida had 80 yards. And I want to ask you about this. This is what we're getting to. Florida had 80 yards on one drive, and it was in the third quarter. And that's what brought it was a touchdown drive, their only touchdown drive. They got 80 of their 141 total yards, which drew Florida within 13-7. And did I read that Florida said, I believe I read one of your stories, that they said that was a scripted drive?
I asked Napier, on Wednesday.
Tell us a little bit about why did that drive work and the other dozen got nothing? Got nothing, Zach.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, we do before every game, and I want to find it here real quick, but before every game, we do keys to the game. And, I have sometimes one of the keys is something that I feel is a key to the matchup. But a lot of times I go off what Billy says and what he feels like is a key, because, that's obviously an opinion that you got to take into an account. And one of his things that he had as a key to the game against Miami was generating points in the second half. The Gators had been shut out at LSU in the second half, the game prior, and they also were held scoreless in the third quarter against USF. So he wanted to make sure that coming out of halftime, they scored after the break. And he said there's been a little bit more of an emphasis on second half scripts. which is, everybody obviously opens a game with a scripted first drive in the first quarter, but Napier said that they now have scripted drives for the start of the second half. And the one that they ran against Miami, which was like you said, not just their only touchdown drive. That was the only time that they really did anything successfully on offense. That was a scripted series. So obviously that's something that we'll probably see more of moving forward. But it's interesting that was the only thing that seemed to really work, and they only ran the ball. They only threw one pass on that drive.
Yeah, we're going to get back to that. We've got a guest. Believe me, we got more to say about that Florida-Miami game. Not a ton, but a little bit more. We got a special guest right now, Joe Cook of Inside Texas. Joseph, it's the Texas Longhorns' first trip to the Swamp since 1940. Zach and I covered that game. It was a beautiful October, I remember. But no, Joe, are you coming to the game, first of all?
I'll be there. I'm flying into Jacksonville on Friday night, and I get to stay in Stark, so a little bit out of town. But I'll be there, and looking forward to it. I think this is a game that Texas fans have been extremely excited for, just because, like you said, last played in 1940. Just don't really or before last played in 1940. Don't cross paths often. Their peaks never really matched. Maybe a little bit in the late 2000s, but never got to see it. So a big trip. I think a lot of Texas fans are excited for this Saturday.
I know Zach's got a lot of questions. Again, Joe Cook of Inside Texas, part of the On3 Network, does an outstanding job covering the Longhorns. Zach's going to have a lot of questions for you, but I just wanted to start off just talking about Texas fans and Texas media. What do you expect to experience at the Swamp? I mean, obviously DKR is a well-known stadium in Texas and nationally, and the Swamp is a well-known stadium in Florida, in the SEC, and nationally as well. But what do you think the fans' expectation? What are your personal expectations? Just kind of what you want to see and experience in the Swamp. It is a unique venue.
So Texas fans have been pretty lucky over these past couple of years. They've gone to Michigan, they've gone to Ohio State, and aside from that being, the semifinal to that first game of the season, for the most part, Texas doesn't really interact with those fans. I think when Texas fans, I was in Michigan, I was in Ann Arbor, I was in Columbus, and those interactions were like, okay, we want to beat you, and we saw some horns down, but there wasn't anything like that nasty. It was just kind of like, okay, welcome, good luck. Hope you lose. And even though Texas is in the SEC with Florida now, I kind of have the sense it's going to feel that way. Hey, horns down, hope we beat you. But Florida and Texas are I feel very similar school-wise. I think Texas, Florida, and Georgia have a lot, my light goes out, have a lot in common. So I feel like they're going to a place in Gainesville that's like, okay, this is a similar type of crowd, but the Swamp is just something I think so many fans are excited to see, especially at that 3:30 time. So you'll get some twilight hours. I know there may be a excitement may be tampered for Florida fans right now, but I still think the novelty is going to be something that both Texas and Florida fans are up for. Man, it's just not cooperating today. And I think also Texas fans are going to want to try and you know what? It may not be happening with the light. I just feel like Texas fans are going to try to get out there. You'll see a good amount of burnt orange there. I think they bring like a small travel band wherever they go, so you'll hear some music. And I think it's just because it's so weird to think that last year was that first year. It seems so long ago, and yet, there's still so many places Texas hasn't been. They're going to go to Athens this year for the first time in forever. They're going to go to Starkville for the first time in, I think, 30 years. Knoxville's on the docket in a couple of years. So just a lot of excitement to see this new place against a new foe, and also see if Texas has kind of snapped out of some of their, non-conference things, road bumps, I guess to say.
Zach, should we warn him? He's staying in Stark. Should we give him a little bit of warning? Or
I've heard of what is in Stark.
It's the drive from Stark to Gainesville. Just drive the speed limit is all I would say. Just drive the speed limit.
That's easy for me. I'm a speed limit driver. So
all right, take it away, Zach. What you got?
It's a speed trap. What he's trying to tell you. Listen, obviously Florida has not lived up to its expectations in 2025. But Texas had sky-high expectations as well, and certainly, at least to start on offense, hasn't reached that either, not to the level that Florida's disappointed. But what do you make of the Longhorns so far this year, and how much hype was put on Arch and the way that he's performed in the offense in general?
So that number one ranking, I think a lot of it had to do with Arch Manning, but a lot of it had to do with the defense. And one of the things I kept saying preseason was, for a program that's replacing 4 offensive line starters and for a program that's replacing a 3-year quarterback starter, you have a great situation. All your options are either 3rd or 4th year players, or it's a top 40 talent. And that top 40 talent is Brandon Baker, the starting right tackle. So you have guys who have been in the program. You're not having to rely on like a true freshman. They looked at some guys in the portal, and now I think with hindsight and even maybe some preseason hindsight, you're kind of thinking maybe they could have gotten a guy, because that unit has not gelled probably as well as Texas fans would like. They have some issues with some zone running schemes. They figure out the gap schemes, but that's because that's a little simpler, but you got to do both. And then the quarterback situation, you're replacing Quinn Ewers, 7th round pick, but quarterback who won you a lot of football games with Arch Manning. And yes, he was a number 1 overall prospect in 2023. Yes, he had some great flashes during his, first year with extended action. I think, Texas fans and Florida fans are going through the same thing. They think that the floor in the ceilings should be so much higher with their star quarterbacks earlier in their careers, but it's still early in their careers. And we saw that for Arch at Ohio State, a great defense. We saw it against UTEP, and that was what was concerning. And it's just, okay, he is just sped up. He's going through reads fine. Like, he's not, just seeing ghost, I guess is the phrase, but he's just mechanically sped up because he's in his own head. He righted himself against Sam Houston State. It's probably the worst team on their schedule. And so I think a lot of these, polls and different outlets that are just dropping Texas out of the top 25, I kind of get if you're in the whole, like, what have you done this year thing. But, I think number 9 is not a bad spot for them right now, especially when it's behind a couple other teams in their league, deservedly so. But the hope is the offense gets clicking. On the other side, the defense has been fantastic. Been very little drop off there. The defensive front was stellar against Ohio State. The Buckeyes marched to the goal line basically on the back of a pass interference and a holding penalty. Texas made 3 stops on the goal line but couldn't make a 4th. And then on the touchdown, the other touchdown that got it to 14 points for Ohio State, it was a shot play, and Carnell Tate actually kind of bobbled the ball and then re-grabbed it before the Longhorn defensive back could. So a good bounce there. So the defense has played great. You have, and I think there's a hope from Texas fans that the pass rush is going to hit home a little bit better when you're going against teams like San Jose State, run and shoot team. When you go against teams like UTEP, who kind of runs the Heupel and Levy, Tennessee, Mississippi State offense, and then you go against Sam Houston, who had Phil Longo, I know was a familiar face in the SEC running the air raid. Those teams had no desire to block Texas. They're like, let's get the ball out and hope for the best. I know Florida may have its offensive issues. I know it does have its offensive issues. But I feel like they may be a little bit more confident in their talent to think like, okay, let's try to set up the run. Let's use Jaden Ball. Let's try to get a little bit of capability to set up some pass plays and see if our guys can block them for the 2.5 seconds. And so I think Texas is like, okay, we'll take that gamble, bring it on, and hopefully they see more from guys like Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, and maybe even middle linebacker Anthony Hill in the pass rush.
I'll take one, Zach.
Go for it.
Yeah, back to Arch Manning for a second. Joe, during the preseason, I mean, let's be honest, the guy was listed as a number 1 Heisman favorite by a lot of outlets. And I'm wondering, he hadn't played much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to get your idea, 2 things. Why was there this huge leap of faith? What was it? What was it that people saw? Because he hadn't played much. So what did they see? And then also, how have your impressions of Arch changed from the preseason to now, if at all?
The big impressions from Texas fans, and I think a lot of it kind of strangely organically came from Texas, is there was a segment of the fan base probably around February of last year who thought that if Steve Sarkisian had switched out Quinn Ewers with Arch Manning, Texas would be national champions. And I think the first month of the season has shown that that probably wouldn't have been the case. And one of the aspects of it is the fact that when he got his action last year, he's played, I think he entered the season with either 9 appearances or 10 appearances. And he had 2 starts, and he had an extended action in another when he was replacing an injured Quinn Ewers. It was against UTSA, a good G5 team, but a good G5 team. It was against ULM, and it was against Mississippi State. ULM and Mississippi State, those teams, I think, combined to go 7-17. And he didn't look perfect the whole time. I mean, he threw 2 picks against ULM, but everybody sees the ESPN hype. The highlights make it the rounds on social media, the legitimately great throws and athletic plays that he made, and think that's what he was. Whereas there was still, other competition, namely the Georgia game when he got a few series plugged in order to calm Quinn Ewers down. He had his own issues as well. There's that picture of Ewers and Manning on the sideline, just kind of staring 1,000 yards down the field. And, Georgia was just as much of a problem for him as it was for Quinn Ewers. So even with all that, the highlights stick out in everybody's mind. He did have a great spring. He did have a great summer. He is obviously very talented. But even Steve Sarkisian himself has been like, this got way out of hand. Like, I understand the Heisman odds. That makes sense. But at all this stuff about 2026 first overall pick, and and I'm not going to be naive enough to think that Arch doesn't invite it himself when he's doing deals with, you see him both on the field and on your screen doing commercials. But I think a lot of Texas fans and the media, even with that good experience from last year, and even with the traits and the skills that he does have, and even like I said, it being a great situation, 3rd-year quarterback, 3rd year in the system, a lot of, talented pieces around you, whether they're fully experienced or not, we didn't think of what the downside could be. And I think you're seeing just a young quarterback who's still in his, under 15 career games played, figuring it all out and learning okay, this is how I use my skill set. This is how I use my traits. This is how I fit in the offense. And so I think the struggles were just kind of ignoring the fact that, oh yeah, this is what happens when quarterbacks are still earlier in their careers. He thought that Manning and all that would just blow right past it. He's just like everybody else. And so I think they're working through that still, but they still believe that there's just a tremendous ceiling with Arch, and they're going to try to tap into it this week.
Real quick, what was the reaction in Austin to Spurrier's comments last year about Arch?
I loved it. I remember I saw that. I think one of y'all wrote about it, and I'm like, oh, I'm pulling this, because I think I messaged you, Zach. I'm like, what is this, a regular thing for Spurrier? Not
That's
him
right.
dropping sound bites, but did he just launch a barb at Arch for no reason, or it's just looks like a weekly thing at his restaurant? But I think, of course, the thing that everybody missed with that with Spurrier, who obviously isn't a Heisman winning quarterback and a national championship coach, is he kind of tagged it at the end maybe he saw more than I did. And that's the thing. Sark did see more than Spurrier did. And I know the barbs for, I know a lot of Dolphins fans probably listening to this, and they're like, well, he's a 7th-round quarterback. How good was he? He was the number 1 overall recruit. Okay, there at a certain point when you get to draft position, at a certain point you're splitting hairs, but the fact that he did do that, of course, does mean a lot. Drop from where he was to where he ended up. But what Sark saw was important. And kind of speaking to the inexperience factor, Sark runs a pretty complex offense. I think he's been very open and honest about that. A lot of different personnels, a lot of motion. You have to know what you're looking at before the snap. And even if Quinn Ewers had some trouble after the snap in delivering everything at the right spot on time, before the snap, and especially on screens and intermediate passing, he was one of the best. His accuracy there on short throws and screens, which are big parts of Texas offense, were fantastic. And he was putting guys in the right spot. His downfield accuracy wasn't what they wanted, but he was putting guys in the right spot. And maybe that's just one of those underrated quarterback traits that, like Spurrier mentioned, okay, he didn't see it. He saw what was on the field. He saw the Saturday, but he didn't see the Sunday through Friday.
I just have one more for Joe, Zach, and then you
Sure.
take the rest. Joe, when you look at this game, I mean, obviously both teams need balance. They both have to figure out a way to get back to running the ball to help their quarterbacks. But Texas has some injuries at the running back position, and I'm not sure the Florida people are kind of fans are sort of worried about what's going on in the Florida bubble right now. It may not.
And then they got their running back out too.
That's right. That's right. So what's going on with the Texas running back situation right now? Who's not healthy? Who's healthy? Who could we see some of this weekend? And how important is it that they get that going to try to beat Florida?
Yeah, so on that Wednesday injury report, you had Quintravian Wisner listed as questionable. He hasn't played since the Ohio State game. And I think if this Florida game were a week or even 2 weeks earlier, he could have gone. So even though he's questionable, I expect to see him. He was the only returning 1,000-yard rusher in the SEC. A lot of that has to do from playing 16 games, but all the same, still got to 1,000 yards. CJ Baxter, the Orlando product from Edgewater, I believe he was listed as doubtful. He had a hamstring issue that knocked him out of the UTEP game. So I think that was that weekend of September 11th or 11th, 12th, 13th. He's probably not going to make this game. So you still have running back 1B. You may not have running back 1A. And so what they're going to have to do is look to some depth. Jarrett Gibson, Gainesville native. I think he may have been a Florida pledge at one point out of IMG Academy. He's going to be a big part of this game plan. He has ball protection issues. And so if some of those outer bands from what's in the tropics or just general swamp weather hits Gainesville, keep an eye on him. He's a second-year sophomore. Then you also have redshirt freshman Christian Clark. They really like what they have in him, but he missed all last year with an Achilles injury. So even though he's a redshirt freshman, he's still kind of new to all this. They only played Baxter and Wisner at Ohio State. So they may keep that rotation tight. We'll see what happens there. And then the third guy is true freshman James Simon, who's looked good, albeit against some, G5 defenses. The other running back you're not talking about is Arch Manning. They're going to use Arch Manning's legs pretty regularly. I think even though Oklahoma is next week, and that's a game that's always circled on the Texas schedule, they know that they got to win this one and then 7 more in SEC play. They know their margin for error is a lot tighter after losing to Ohio State. So Sark likes to talk about, I don't like running the quarterback, but more and more it kind of feels like he's evolving his viewpoint on that, especially when you got Arch Manning, who, if he does have a seam, he can get to the end zone. He can also, he's also 6'4", 220, so they can, use him to ram their head against the wall. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Arch Manning and his legs and his presence in the run game also be a factor.
All right, well, we've asked a lot about the offense. I do want to talk about the defense with you. They are elite across the board in terms of where they rank nationally. Top 10 and 4 categories here that I'm looking at, and 16th ranked passing defense. So they've been very good. Are they that elite given who they've played? And I say that knowing that they played Ohio State in the opener, but that was an Ohio State team that was bringing in a new starting quarterback. It was the first game of the season. It is some of that and those stats misleading because of who they've played the last 3 weeks, in your opinion? I mean, what do you make of that? Or do you think they actually are probably that good?
They seem that good. And I get what you're asking, but they're dominating those teams. Nothing worked for Sam Houston, nothing at all. UTEP probably got some more opportunities than they should have because of Arch's struggles, and they, could only manage a little bit. San Jose State, those passing yards are a little misleading because their underneath passing game was their running game with the run and shoot. They got some yards, but they could barely get any points. And then Ohio State, very similar to Texas. I know they lost a lot of guys from those national championship teams, but the guys they're using have talent, especially in the run game, especially out wide. Jeremiah Smith did not have much of a game, and he had some drops, and Max Clare did not have much of a game, and he had some drops. But Texas, they basically got beat just that one time, and it was the one time that Ohio State was able to make that connection. So they really do seem like the real deal. And it's at all three levels. It's on the defensive front with guys like Ohio State transfer Hero Canoe, Purdue transfer Cole Brevard, Alex January, who's a true sophomore who missed the last couple games and may find his way back into the starting lineup. He had a great showing against Ohio State. It's Colin Simmons. It's Ethan Burke. It's the linebacker core. And it's even, some of these guys who are stepping into roles in a secondary that had a Thorpe Award winner and a second-round pick. Jelani McDonald is extremely athletic and often plays the role of that box safety. And then a true freshman from Tampa, from Wiregrass Ranch, and Grayson Littleton has manned the nickel corner spot and been fantastic. So maybe the one weak spot is boundary corner. Jalen Gilbo, he gave up that long touchdown pass at Ohio State. He's a senior. He's had some up and down games. And his counterpart, I guess to say, is Kobe Black, who was also on the injury report, I believe is either questionable or probable. So if anything, that boundary corner spot has been a little bit of a weak point, but it's also in comparison to what's a elite 10-man and kind of 15-man group.
Two more quick questions for you, Joe. With that being said, Florida surprisingly had success running the ball against Texas last year. Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson both had 19 carries. Jackson had 116 yards. Ball had 88. So they combined for over 200 yards. Now, some of that was in the second half when the game was decided. But I would also imagine that because of Florida's quarterback situation with Aiden Warner, the Longhorns knew that the Gators were running it, and they still were able to run it. Is that something that they could potentially have success with again on Saturday? And what does their run defense look like this year?
Yeah, I think that's the concern, because it's for, with DJ Lagway and all the different guys, it's like, okay, you got to show us that you can do it until we're really going to fear it. But Jaden Ball, and even though it's Jacoby Lane, right? Like, even though
Jacoby Jackson, he's out.
Jacoby Jackson, like, even though he's out for this game, like, there's a lot of respect for Jaden Ball. Jaden Ball would probably be starting at Texas right now, and there's a respect for what they did last year, like you mentioned, with Aiden Warren, knowing that it was just about to be a run game. That's kind of where Texas is thinking, okay, this is where we have to be really strong. And one of the advantages that Texas has because of its secondary is it does run a lot of single high stuff where they will drop a safety into the box to help out. When they had Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, they would, they felt confident that they could survive at a too high look. But now, not to say that these defensive tackles are lacking, they're just not top 50 players. So they drop a safety in the box. They trust Michael Taft in the middle, a second-team All-American, and they trust some of the guys on the outside to hold up and make sure that those, plays are taken care of. And with that safety in the box, they feel pretty good about what they're able to do. I think we're going to see probably the best test for Texas so far this year, just because of what Florida has at center with Slaughter and what they have at tackle. I'm forgetting the guy's name. Barber. Like, those two guys may be the best offensive linemen that Texas has faced this year, and maybe the best offensive linemen they face all year. So that's going to be a battle I'm going to watch right away. And then, for what Michael Taft is, last line of defense, he's still 190 pounds. And I know Jaden Ball is a little bit bigger than that. So I'm curious, if he breaks through one level, if he breaks through two level, is he going to get through the third? But the thing is, we just haven't seen anybody really try to test that this year. Not even Ohio State really, try to go after them too much with the run game. So this is going to be absolutely crucial test. And I think if Florida can run the football, might open things up for that offense that haven't been there except for against when they were playing Long Island this year.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't really there against them either, if we're being totally
You got anything else, Keith?
Well, do we want to get Joe's prediction right now?
Yeah, that's how I was going to – he mentioned this on our board of, what it would take for Florida to win, what it would take for Texas to win. And then, if he's got a prediction or he can share with us. You don't have to give us a drop of score or anything like that.
No, I've got one ready. I have it 24-14 Texas. And I think the implied score from the line that I last checked was like 24-17 or something like that. So this is probably a first to 20 game. I think both these defenses are pretty dang capable. I think both these offenses are working things out with their star quarterbacks. But I think there is a factor, and it's the whole, okay, you're 1-3, and one side of the ball is carrying its weight a little bit more than the other. And I think that's I think I mentioned this yesterday to somebody. Like, I've never been in a college football locker room, and I know coaches have culture, and I know Billy Napier's worked extremely hard at that. But I think that is real. I think that's a thing, and it's hard to manage at 1-3. It's a little bit easier to manage at 3-1 because you're winning the games. But when you're not winning the games and you get behind, like, I'm really curious to see what exactly happens if, the game starts going a certain way and the defense for Florida keeps doing their part and then the offense continues to sputter. Like, that's just something. And I know I'm, 1,000 miles away talking about this, but that's just something I'm thinking about when I think about this game. And I can 24-14 for Texas as a result.
No, Joe, I agree. The psychology of the game is something people don't talk about. It's all about numbers on a sheet of paper. Sometimes a 1-3 team starts to play like a 1-3 team, even if the 3 losses might be to good opponents. But Joe, we appreciate it. Zach, anything else you need from our?
No, man. He's blessed us this week on our show, on our board. I'm gonna return the favor Thursday night, and look forward to having you in Gainesville, man.
All right, Joe Cook of Inside Texas. Make sure you go check out his work, InsideTexas.com, part of the On3 Network. They've had a lot of great breakdowns of this week's game, and you can really get a feel for what's going on in Austin as the Longhorns prepare for trip number 1 to the Swamp since 1940. Unbelievable.
And remember, don't speed leaving Stark.
Again.
I'll be on the lookout. Thanks, guys.
That's right. Be careful. And there is a Sonny's Barbecue, by the way, in Stark if you want something to eat. So check that out. But Joe Cook of Inside Texas. Joe, thank you so much, man. Have a safe trip. We'll see you at the Swamp on Saturday.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks for that.
Take care, man.
All right. Good stuff from Joseph Cook.
Absolutely.
I just want to – it's interesting, this Arch Manning thing. I want to get back to that Miami game too, by the way. But Zach, you read all the things about him this summer. I mean, I wrote that, hey, he's probably the real deal because so many of my friends in the media said, oh, trust me. What was how about we do no more leaps of faith anymore? How about it's just, hey, somebody's got to something first.
I thought that he could be good, but I never understood the hype.
Well, you're right. He may still end up being great. He doesn't seem to have this world-class arm. No. Maybe I'm wrong here. I could be totally wrong because, Zach, when the mind and the arm aren't in sync, then the arm doesn't throw like it's capable of throwing. So there may be some element to that too. But
I think Florida fans know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Back to that Miami game. So when it was 13-7, and so I've had so many of my friends, Zach, say, but Florida was in the game. They were in the game, and they were in the game. But from 13-7 on, Florida ran 18 plays, Zach, for a total of 29 yards. So looking back, that one touchdown drive that you were breaking down so beautifully before Mr. Cook came on, it was really an anomaly. I hate this. I mean, you hate to be that negative, but it really wasn't like, okay, they did that, now they can do this. It was, they did that, but they did nothing before that. And it was
scripted.
That's right. And they did nothing after that. So still some real concerns here. DJ Lagway's stats, by the way, on the season, if I would have told you before the season, Zach, hey, DJ's going to complete 68% of his passes, you'd probably be thinking, hey, that ain't bad. But here's a real issue here. He's completing 68% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Look, the 6 interceptions, it's not good, but 5 of them were in one game. In the other 3 games, he's got 1 pick. Okay. 5.6 yards an attempt, Zach. 5.6 yards an attempt. That is down from 10 last year. In tough games, and Florida just had 3 in a row, you cannot go 80 yards in 15 plays. You got to have chunk plays, right? So Florida's longest completion this year is 41 yards. Lagway's longest completion last year, 85. They got to take shots, and Dallas Wilson, per you, he's playing this week.
Oh, yeah, he's back. Or should I say he's not back, he's making his debut.
That's right. He's back from his spring game. Can you put the spring game statistics in your career statistics? Can you do that? But
Well, I believe he set the record, did he not? Yeah, he set
yeah,
the
he
record
set
in the
the
spring
record
game.
for, yeah, like 10 catches, 190 around
95
there.
yards, yeah.
Look, he's a really talented, true freshman receiver for the Gators who maybe some of you are casual listeners and may have forgotten about him because he hasn't played this year, but an elite recruit out of Tampa Bay Tech last season who I went and saw play multiple times. In fact, sources had told us, Zach, last year at this time, that guy is college ready right now. They were saying that a year ago. He got to UF, shined immediately after he signed with Oregon, backed out of that, ended up at Florida in late January, had an outstanding spring. And as you've reported, he was running some, at least, with the starters in fall camp before he got hurt. This is a big piece. This is a big weapon Florida's got back. Are we going to see more shots this week, Zach? Are we finally going to see the deep shots? What's your gut telling you? I'm putting it all on you, man.
I think for Florida to win, they're going to have to. Now, I think they're going to take them. Are they going to complete them? That's another thing. I'm excited to see Dallas Wilson, but I'm cautious of expecting too much as far as what that's going to bring. I think that he himself individually can bring a lot and can make an immediate impact, even with the time that he's missed. Like, he's playing wide receiver. It's not like playing quarterback or being on the line. It's easy for him to miss a month or two and then step back into the fire. I still, what I'm cautious about is his lack of time with DJ Lagway. It has, to me, in my opinion, it's hurt the chemistry between DJ and J. Michael Sturdivant. It's affected the chemistry between DJ and Vernell Brown III. Any of these new guys that did not play with DJ last year, because I think anybody can see, in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree, that the guy that he has the best chemistry with is Aiden Mizell, who's been hurt. He's back this week and should be playing, according to Napier. That's the guy that he seems to have the best chemistry with, even more so than Eugene Wilson, who only played 4 games last year. So Mizell is like his guy, and he doesn't have the chemistry or hasn't had the chemistry with the other guys yet. So for Dallas just getting back, he never threw in the spring with DJ. He never threw in training camp with DJ. What does it take for them to get on the same page, especially to your point, Keith, if they're going to take deep shots with them? Are they going to have time to take deep shots against Texas? As Joe said, given how good their pass rush has been and how poor Florida's pass protection was against Miami. So it's a big question mark going into this game. I wrote a big story at Gators Online this week about Billy Napier and play calling and his offense and what he's trying to do to fix it, and the storyline with Steve Sarkisian. Well, one of the things that he got suggested to by his staff, which he asked their suggestions during the bye week, was to take more deep shots. And so he knows that they got to do it. DJ knows that they got to do it more. They've got to have the time, and they've got to get the guys that can create separation to get open downfield. And to your point, Keith, Dallas Wilson is one of those guys.
They just can't against elite defenses. They played 2 very good defenses in a row, and they have like a couple good drives, really. It is so hard to go the length of the field. Now, to go the length of the field by just chipping away because so many things can go wrong. And unfortunately for Florida, it's been a holding penalty here, or a false start here, or an interception there. They got to figure out a way to get some chunk plays, even if it results in turnovers deep, which are just, as Steve Spurrier used to say, just like punts. Before we get to our predictions, Zach, just a couple of keys. If Florida does this, and by the way, this is unscripted. We don't even talk before the show. We just want to kind of just let the flow of the conversation dictate where we go. So, Zach, I haven't told you these things to prepare for, so forgive me. 2 or 3 things that Florida does. If they do these couple things, man, they got a real shot. What would it be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that one thing that they got to do is generate more points on offense. Whatever that looks like. Whether they have the scripted drive and at the second half, whether they score on their first drive, I think it's important for them to start fast in this game. That's certainly one key. They gotta get the swamp back. They gotta get the swamp into the game. They gotta create momentum early and get the crowd into it. I honestly, Keith, I think defensively, they need to keep playing at the level that they've been playing at. I think that generating turnovers is key in this game. Winning the turnover battle is going to be a key in this game. You mentioned the 5 interceptions versus LSU, but just 1 interception in the other 3 games. I think that's the DJ Lagway that's got to show up Saturday. He's got to take care of the ball, but also be willing to take shots and chances in this game. So that having to strike that balance there. Joe said the first 1 to 20 wins.
Yeah.
I almost feel like Florida has to keep this game in the teens.
Wow.
Certainly defensively. Like, I don't think that they can let Texas score more than 20 points because I don't know offensively that they can score more than 20 against this Texas team. So to me, now, hey, they held Miami to 13 points with 5 minutes left in the game before they went for 2 turnovers on downs in Miami territory. Miami scored the last 5 minutes of the game. So really that defense held up for all but the last 5 minutes. And then obviously they only gave up 13 points at LSU defensively. They have to repeat that performance on Saturday.
All right, before we do our predictions, Zach's got to do one final ad read, and we'll jump right back, and we'll tell you what we think is going to happen Saturday.
Sounds good. Yeah, before we get to our predictions, we've got to get to this. I think Florida fans can appreciate this ad read each and every week, and I'm sure for the folks that have seen, Modelo's got a great Florida Gators ad, the Florida Tailgater that you've got to see this season. And obviously football is underway in 2025. This is the SEC home opener for the Gators, believe it or not. And college football season is Modelo season. If you're listening to this right now, it means it's time for a reward. Reward your full-time fandom with an ice-cold Modelo. Modelo is the official beer sponsor of the College Football Playoff. Gator Nation, you deserve a Modelo.
They sure do, Zach.
Yes, they do.
They sure do. All right, if you like what we're doing, go down below, hit the like and subscribe button, leave a comment. We welcome generally, we welcome a lot of your comments. Yeah, try to be somewhat respectful if you can. We are doing our best here. Also, make sure you go to gatorsonline.com for more great insight throughout the week and obviously during game weekend. Texas, Florida prediction. Zach, I'll go real quick because I want yours to be a little more thorough than mine. I'm going 26-16 Texas. But, look, Texas's offense is shaky. And, Baxter being hurt at running back, that's a big question mark there. So if they're one-dimensional, maybe Florida can create a defensive touchdown off of a turnover, or I think Florida's going to need 2 or 3 turnovers to have a real chance here, a realistic chance. So if you can make them one-dimensional, put some pressure on Arch Manning, force him into making bad decisions and bad throws and getting rattled at the swamp. If it's close in the first half, that means it's going to be extremely loud in the second half. And so maybe you can create an atmosphere where that is possible. But again, the biggest concerns for Florida, to me, continue to be the offense. And we haven't seen enough. It would be a real leap of faith. That's the second time I've used that term this show, but it would be a real leap of faith for me to say these guys are going to go out and score 27 points because they haven't done it yet. Now, can they do it? Maybe, but they haven't done it yet. We haven't seen enough to think they can do it. Can they develop some balance? Texas only allows, barely over 200 yards a game, 211 yards a game, 7.75 points a game. Now, granted, they haven't really played anybody outside of Ohio State, but it is a legit defense. So I like Texas by 10, but I think if Florida can create maybe a defensive touchdown, 2 or 3 defensive turnovers, I think they'll have a real shot going into the fourth quarter. Zach, what do you got?
Well, before the season, I predicted Florida to beat Texas.
Oh, my.
And I thought that I didn't believe the Longhorns' hype. I didn't understand all the praise for Arch Manning, and I didn't think that they were going to be as legit as people were saying that they were. Obviously, I was also wrong about Florida, though, too. So far, like I think, though, that, and I've said this multiple times now, I still feel like there is a game out there for DJ Lagway this season where he's going to put it together. I don't know what that looks like from a, passing yardage numbers or how many touchdowns he's going to throw. But I do think that he's going to have a game at some point this season, and maybe it's not in enough time for Billy Napier. But I do think that he's going to have a game at some point this season where he shows up. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be on Saturday, but I do think that he's going to play better. I think he's going to play the best that he's played. And I don't know about Texas's defense. I think that they're really good. I still think that Miami's defense is better and will be maybe the best that Florida will see all season. But, they really have not played anybody. And I understand that Florida's offense has not played well themselves. But I look at that Ohio State and Texas game and that matchup where the Longhorns only put up 7 points in that game on the road. And yes, it was an opener. And yes, Texas has had all these weeks and these cupcakes opponents to kind of bounce back and get some rhythm on offense. But I just feel like this is a game where Florida's defense can do enough once again to keep Florida in it. And then it's going to really come down to, can the Gators generate enough points? Can they put together enough drives? Can DJ Lagway do enough? They scored 17 points against Texas last year, and they ran the ball very well. They don't have Jacoby Jackson in this game, who had his first career 100-yard game against the Longhorns. And as good as he was against Miami, had that big run, I don't know, Keith, part of me feels like that might somehow – there might be a silver lining in that. Because now Billy is going to have Jaden Ball have to be his primary option for pretty much everything that he wants to do out of the backfield. I think we'll see Duke Clark here and there, but he's going to have to run the ball. And I think what he wants to do in terms of getting the running back involved in the passing game is going to all circle around ball as well. This is the most weapons that DJ has had among his receiver group now, with Dallas Wilson back, with Aiden Mizell being, it appears to be the healthiest that he's been. J. Michael Sturdivant coming back off the concussion, and you got VB3 and Eugene Wilson the third as well. So, Keith, I'm going to go with my preseason.
I feel something coming here.
And I'm going to say 17-13 Florida.
Wow. Well, okay, let's follow up on that, Zach. If they do win this game, what does that do for the hot seat chatter? Is it just a 1 week stay of execution?
Yeah, I do. I think it's just I think it's a big win for Napier. I think it cools some things off, but it doesn't change anything because he's still going to have to rattle off more wins. I think if they can do this, I think that will give them at least some hope and some, momentum that they can maybe have a chance to turn it around. I just think it comes at a good time for Florida with the bye week. They have more guys back defensively than I thought they were. I thought Brendan Bett was going to be out for this game.
Yeah.
I didn't know that Mekhi Barrow was going to play. George Gumbs coming back. It sucks that they lost Aaron Gates, and it sucks that they lost Dijon Johnson. But Sharif Denson's been your starting nickel. And Cormani McClain obviously is ready to step into a starting role. So I think Florida can do it, Keith.
Okay. All right. The flip side of this is, and people are always wondering, look, it's the elephant in the room. If they lose, Zach, and it's at what point, what number, how uncomfortable, how ugly of a loss would it need to be for maybe something. And look, we're trying to answer questions we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at it from a fan standpoint and from also maybe from an athletic director standpoint,
Yeah.
you would say how many wins did Napier need to get this year at a minimum, and how many losses could you stomach at a minimum to be okay with this season? And I'm talking about going into the year. I think most people wanted to see Florida go 9-3.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people would be okay with 8-4, because even at that record, you could still win a bowl game and finish 9-4, which would be an improvement from the record the year before. I think people would have still been disappointed with that. I don't think he would have got fired for going 8-4, though. I don't. 7-5 to me, given everything that they had on the roster, where they're at in year 4, a 7-5 record would be disappointing. And I think 6-6 would just be unacceptable. So to me, once you start getting into that range of losses where he basically can't coach himself out of the record, to me, that's when you have to start thinking about making a decision publicly. For all we know, Keith, his fate might already be sealed if he loses on Saturday against Texas. I certainly think that there's a chance that they could do it after that game if the loss is ugly enough. But I would understand still, even at 1-4, not necessarily doing it yet. Maybe you have one more week against Texas A&M, which is still an opportunity to win a big game. And if you can't get that one, maybe you do it before homecoming. Keith, it all depends. We're speculating here,
Sure.
and it all depends on what it looks like on Saturday and how the team performs coming off the bye week.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. And that's right, Zach perfectly said. And in fact, also we need to point out, Scott Strickland, Florida's athletic director, kind of moves in silence. I say that every week, but he's not out there telling everybody what his next move is going to be. And you say, okay, no kidding, no AD does that, but he's particularly kind of in that bubble when it comes to stuff like this. So we'll see. I tend to think, Zach, if it's really ugly, maybe something could happen, but I don't think it will be ugly. But again, we don't know what's going to happen. Florida could win. Who knows, right? That's why they play the games. But anyway, Zach's got Florida winning on Saturday. Keep the faith. I've got Florida losing a tight battle. One of us is going to be right. One of us is going to be wrong. We appreciate everybody stopping by as usual. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button down below. Leave a comment and go to GatorsOnline.com for a ton of great Florida Gators content. Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time in the Swamp, Florida versus Texas. First time since 1940 the Longhorns are in Gainesville. Zach, great job as always. We'll do it again next week. We'll have a rapid reaction after the game, and then we will have a show on Monday. Take care, everybody, and have a safe, fun weekend. Enjoy the game.